Good evening to you all, and welcome to our first of the month meeting, regular meeting in September. We did delay it by a day because of the holiday yesterday, so welcome to all of you who are here tonight. We appreciate you complying with our request that you wear a mask, and of course our seating is arranged so you'll be somewhat socially distanced, so thank you all for that. I believe we have ample room for everybody, but if there is a need for extra space, there is some overflow space upstairs, but I don't think we're going to need that tonight probably. So, as we always do, we begin our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're able to stand and can participate, we would invite you to do that at this time. Yeah, you're right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we go any further, I should ask the clerk if she will to call the roll at this time.
Mayor Marshburn?
I'm present.
Mayor Pro Tem Behringer?
Here.
Councilmember Vance?
Here.
Councilmember Singleton?
Here.
Councilmember Matthews?
Here.
And Councilmember Dellinger?
Here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Council, for being present this evening. Okay, our next order is the invocation. It's my privilege this evening to recognize a pastor that I just met fairly recently. He's sort of new to our area, I guess that's a good way to say it. Reverend Darrell Davis, who's the pastor of the Glorious Church of Raleigh, sort of located out in the 4042 area, and he's been gracious enough to come this evening and to offer our invocation, if you will, Reverend Davis.
Good evening. May we bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, God, for this day that you have allowed us to see again. I thank you, God, for everyone in their respective places. I thank you, God, for your agenda, everything that is on your heart that's to be done and to be said. I thank you, God, for the collaborative effort, oh God, to make this area what you have desired for it to be, an area of growth, prosperity, harmony, and healing. We ask you this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Reverend Davis, if you would like to, sometimes we give our pastors an opportunity to tell us a little bit about their church and maybe what's going on there. So feel free to do that, sir.
Oh, yes. Well, the Glorious Church is first of all, my name is Wilbert Davis. I was born in Wake County, educated in Kentucky, Southern California, and on back home where I started my family back in the early 90s. I've been pastoring going on 20 years. We're just we're just so excited to be a part of the Garner community. We're down on the exit 312 Highway 42 area. We are a community-oriented church, heavily educational. We have a lot of our parishioners that are educators and things like that. So we love outreach and community development. And we're just so excited about being a part of this great area and looking to connect from the faith-based community side of things. So we solicit your prayers and hopefully we get to see you in the coming days.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. And we look forward to hearing great things from you out there in your ministry as well. Okay, at this point in time, we are at the segment of our agenda under petitions and comments. This is the portion of the meeting to receive comments from the public on items not included on the agenda. The council is interested in hearing your concerns, but may not take action or deliberate on subject matters brought up during the petitions and comments segment. Topics requiring further investigation will be referred to the appropriate town officials or staff and may be scheduled for a future agenda. We like to encourage any persons who want to speak to sign a sign-up list, but we'll recognize those if they have. Madam Clerk, did anyone sign up tonight? Okay, all right. So is there anyone in the audience out there who came desiring to petition the council on an issue? If so, if you would let it be known at this time by just raising your hand or standing up, I'll try to recognize you. Okay, seeing and hearing none, then we'll move right along with our agenda. Council, the next item is the adoption of the agenda. You've all had a chance to look and review that, I'm sure. So I would entertain a motion at this time for the adoption of the agenda.
So move. Second.
Okay, motion properly made and seconded, and if there's no discussion, all in favor of adoption of the agenda, please say aye. If there's opposition, no. Okay, we are now under the agenda topic of presentations. And so I want to invite Councilmember Singleton to join me down at the mic down here. We have a couple of very special presentations this evening, and so we're going to do that from down here. Yeah, man. Yeah. Okay. So it's my great privilege this evening, and this is an exciting time for your mayor. You might can tell a little excited about this. It's my great honor to recognize this young man standing to my right, who is Randolph Ross, who is a graduate of Garner Magnet High School. Randolph's part of a tradition of academic and athletic excellence that has deep roots in Garner Magnet High. He won the 4A state title in the 400-meter track and field event as a senior at Garner Magnet. Now, Randolph is a student athlete at North Carolina A&T. As most of you know, earlier this year, he became the NCAA national champion in the men's 400-meter. He recorded the third fastest time in the event in the NCAA history, as well as the fastest time in the world in 2021. But he wasn't finished. As some of you may be aware, he went on to other great things this summer in Tokyo, where he was part of the gold medal winning team in the 4x400 meter men's relay. And so tonight, young man, I'm proud to share with you that we are honoring our homegrown Olympic gold medalist with a proclamation and with a special presentation to follow. So at this time, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Singleton, who will read the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. Proclamation, whereas Randolph Ross is a resident of Garner and a graduate of Garner Magnet High School, and whereas Mr. Ross represented the United States at the 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo, whereas he was a part of a team that won an Olympic gold medal in the men's 4x400 meter relay event, and whereas he has been ranked #1 nationally in 3 different track and field events, whereas he has stood out as an example of what we can achieve through hard work, determination, and perseverance, and whereas he has represented our community in exemplary fashion, both overseas and at home, whereas he continues to strive for excellence as an athlete and a scholar at North Carolina A&T State University. Now, therefore, our Mayor, Ken Marshburn, the Mayor of the town of Garner, does hereby proclaim September 7th, 2021 as Randolph Ross Day, signed by our Mayor, Ken Marshburn. And Randolph, let me say, as a fellow graduate of Garner Magnet High School, I'm very proud to read this and present this to you. I know that your classmates and your teachers and coaches and the entire town is very proud of you.
So thank you very much. And in addition to the proclamation, Randolph, I have something else very special for you. It's a key to the city. And before I read what is on the plaque, let me just say to you that, you know, this key we're giving to you, it won't unlock any of the doors here in Town Hall. But I do believe that it will be symbolic of the spirit of this town and the great admiration that we have for people like you who make great achievements like this. So let me read this to you. It's presented to Randolph Ross in recognition of your achievement of winning a gold medal, in the 4x400 meter relay in the 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympics. And as a person who is meeting a gold medal winner for the first time, I congratulate you, sir. And we would invite you to come make any comments you'd like to make.
I would just like to say thank you for the town of Garner. They've been my #1 support system the whole way through my career and life so far. And I just want to say thank you. You know, couldn't ask for a better city to be born in. I've lived here my whole life. My family still lives here now, so it's an honor being able to go out and represent a city that I truly love. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, and we would love to recognize your family members who are here. So maybe if they would stand or be recognized, or if you want to introduce them, that would be great to do at this time.
This is my mother, Chris Ross.
Okay.
This is my little brother. His name is also Randolph. So he is RJ. This is my grandfather, John Quinander. And this is my grandmother, Hortense Brooks.
I'd like to say that this is what we call favor that God gives. When He honor you like this, bless you, not with that is favor. Never forget that. That's our honor that God does. Randolph Ross. Go ahead, come out with another.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, did you want to get another photo?
Family like to join us for a photo up here?
Yeah, come on out, please.
Randolph. Yeah, Randolph. Randolph. Greensboro's my hometown. Go Aggies.
What? She was.
I was just trying to be loosely associated.
I know, right?
I just know I want to stand beside this one, so I won't feel so short.
One more, please. Thank you. Anyone else?
Okay, the town manager wanted to know if you had the gold medal with you. Oh, yeah. And the mayor wanted to know that.
We won't touch it, we just want to look at it. I've seen the silver before, I don't think I've seen the gold.
Wow.
I really have something to tell my grandchildren.
TV.
I'm going to recognize Mayor Pro Tem Barry. Now make the next presentation. So we'll come on down.
Whereas Public Law 915 designating September 13th. And whereas this celebration of the Constitution was started in 1955, DAR petitioned Congress to set aside the week of September 13th through 17th annually to be dedicated to the observance of Constitution Week. The resolution was later adopted by the U.S. Congress and signed into public law August 2nd, 1956. President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, therefore, Ken Marshall, Mayor of the town of Garner, does hereby proclaim September 13th through 17th, 2021 as Constitution Week. In Garner and urge all citizens to reaffirm and confirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution in 1787 and reflect on the privilege of being an American with all the rights and responsibilities that privilege involves, remembering
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Barringer. And it's my great privilege to recognize our special guest here this evening for this purpose. Former council member Bud Kennedy and his lovely wife, I believe you're here to receive this, so if you would, you need to come forward this time. Okay. Sure enough. I'd like to present this to you and ask you to place that.
For doing this every year for us. We think it's an important thing to remind everybody of. Remember that on the 17th? That's a special day when it was signed. So that's a good day to remember. We also have, we are the VAR, and we also have an SAR, which is a member of the Garner staff here. So if you could stand up. There it is, he's standing. Thank you very much. Did you have anybody else who came tonight? Okay. Well, we appreciate you coming. This is an important thing, and I hope everybody will be reminded of it.
Get it right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, thank you, council and audience, for allowing us time to do these special recognitions. I often tell people that this is the fun part of being mayor. So now we have to get down to the serious business, take care of business on the rest of our agenda tonight. So the first item, I believe, is the consent agenda. There are,
We have one more.
excuse me, you're right, I'm
presentation. One more
sorry. Yep,
presentation.
yep. I was getting ahead of myself. So we have another presentation, PFM Investments Update, and Miss Leslie, where are you?
On screen. Virtual.
Oh, excuse me, okay, yes. Thank you. Good evening. I recognize Mr. David Beck, our Finance Director, who will maybe do a proper introduction, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening.
Good evening.
We have with us this evening virtually Leslie Weber and Nelson Bush, who are both with PFM. And as you'll recall, a few weeks ago, I let you all know that Craig Robinson, who had been the longtime account manager for our investments with PFM, had moved on to another opportunity, and Leslie was going to be filling that role. And then also that PFM was in the process of merging with US Bank. the asset management division of PFM. So Nelson Bush is going to be one of the regional managers post-merger. And so they're both here this evening just to introduce themselves to you, also kind of tell you a little bit about the merger. And then there is an action item you have also in the agenda packet, the proposed investment advisory agreement with PFM, which is just updated from the one we currently have, but we did tweak just a couple minor things. So that will come after their presentation, but they do have a PowerPoint presentation they'll go through, and with that, I'll turn it over to Leslie.
Okay, thank you. And let me just say welcome to both of you. We're excited to hear from you, and thank you, Mr. Beck, for the introduction. So please go right ahead.
Thank you. Can everyone hear and see us okay before we get started? We know there's always those technical difficulties sometimes.
Sure.
Perfect. All right. So David, if we want to start on slide 4, good evening everyone, and thank you for having us at tonight's council meeting. Again, my name is Leslie Weber. I am a senior managing consultant at PFM Asset Management, and also that David mentioned, we have Nelson Bush, who is our managing director here tonight. I'm the relationship manager for the town of Garner and will be the day-to-day contact who works closely with Mr. David Beck, along with Nelson's oversight. If we flip to the next slide, David, we have another colleague of ours as well that works with the town. His name is Walker Mashke, who is in our client services group, and he also assists with the portfolio and also assists with NCIP accounts as well. So on the next slide, on slide 7, I'll start with a brief market update and an update of the portfolio that we currently manage for the town of Garner. And then I'll go ahead and turn it over to Nelson to discuss the U.S. Bank and PFM Asset Management acquisition, and we could answer any questions that you all may have at that time. So looking at slide 7, we'll begin with the economy here. The economic recovery is well on its way. We are bouncing back from the pandemic due to the novel coronavirus. However, the Delta variant has made the recovery challenging as the number of cases are starting to rise again with the more infectious variant. U.S. GDP, or gross domestic product, has come in strong because of the U.S. consumer, however, came in below economists' forecasts. So what this slide really shows a story of is the different GDP forecasts from economists from each month for each quarter of 2021. So going forward, we should expect a strong forecast of U.S. GDP and then perhaps decreasing just a little bit and starting to come back to pre-pandemic growth, as it's a bit unrealistic to have such a strong growth for each quarter as the economic recovery continues. The increase in the second quarter GDP, second of 3 estimates, came in at an annualized 6.6%. This GDP growth reflected the continued economic recovery, the reopening of the establishments, and the continued government response related to the pandemic. So historically, U.S. GDP has been comprised of 2/3 of personal consumption. What I mean by that is us folks in the room, when we go out to eat, when we travel, when we buy those airline tickets, those big ticket items. If we've been experienced now with working from home, if we don't like our arrangement, maybe we go out and buy that furniture or spruce up our workspace. This all contributes to the U.S. economy and helps the economy recover. The Federal Reserve has also helped with the economic recovery by using their monetary policy tools. They did this by keeping interest rates low to allow for very low borrowing. We saw the housing market grow to record highs due to the low borrowing rates. But on the flip side, if you're investing in short-term fixed rate investments, rates have been very low. So if we switch over to slide 8, the Federal Reserve has had a dual mandate of keeping unemployment low and prices stable. Inflation recently, I'm sure, has been in the news and you've all heard about it, has been viewed as transitory by the Fed and is temporary due to the supply chain bottlenecks and a lot of the manufacturing shortages. So taking a look at the job market, there had been over 20 million jobs lost because of the pandemic, and we're about halfway there of recovering those lost jobs. The chart on the left-hand side shows the unemployment workers versus job openings for July and June. And if this were a perfect reality, this would mean that there are enough job openings for the workers who are unemployed. In July, job openings hit almost record highs in the past year, and unemployment continues to trend lower, which is a positive thing. In the summer months, if you could see on the chart on the right-hand side, we had strong job growth as states are reopening with the vaccination efforts increasing and as more folks got vaccinated. But just a quick update in August, since we did get those readings on Friday, due to the hiring challenges and the Delta variant, the number of jobs came in. It came in a bit underwhelming and below expected. It came in at 243,000 jobs in comparison to July, which was actually revised upward with a little bit over 1 million. Like I mentioned, unemployment is trending lower at 5.2 for August, so it did decrease by a little bit at 5.4. So the number of jobs added in August, even though they aren't the highest of highs, these are pre-pandemic types of numbers that we would have seen before the pandemic. So we'll have to see more to come on what's going to come in the future months and if this is going to be a trend going forward. So speaking earlier about the Fed keeping the interest rates low, we heard at the most recent Fed meeting and also at their annual Jackson Hole Symposium that they do believe that the economy is recovering, but we still have a bit to go yet before they start raising rates again. So according to the Federal Open Market Committee dot plot, or FOMC dot plot, of where each voting member has a plot, they will plot a dot on a chart of where they think the interest rates will be over the next few years. The dot plot indicates where they think interest rates will be, and looking at the most recent chart, it does not look like they will be raising rates again until perhaps the end of 2022 or early 2023. If we look at slide 9, taking a look at the U.S. Treasury curve, this curve shows the yields across different maturities and also the different shifts from March, June, and August of 2021. So as we could see on the shorter end of the curve, so about maturities under a year and under were little unchanged. The Fed controls the short end of the curve. We could see that it's been anchored to almost nearly zero, and this is the Fed keeping the federal funds target rate range between 0 and 25 basis points. If we look out longer out the curve, so the longer term, we could see in March, in the dotted blue line, we could see that it was a bit higher in comparison to July and August. And what the long end of the yield curve reflects is investor sentiment. So U.S. Treasuries are safe haven assets, and investors from all over the world invest in these highly desirable securities. Though they are at historic lows in comparison to other countries who may have negative investment yields, this may be a better option. So as investors are feeling good about the economy, perhaps they'll go ahead and invest in riskier type of assets. This would lead to yields increasing as they're less attracted to the risk-free type of assets such as the U.S. Treasury. But the decrease in yield has something to do with the Delta variant coupled with perhaps a potential gloomier economic outlook. Investors flocking to U.S. Treasuries, and with the Fed buying program, they've been buying $120 billion in government securities. All of those factors drove yields down. So with supply and demand, this causes higher prices on these securities, which leads to much lower yields. So if we take a look on slide 10, so what does this all mean for the town's portfolio? Well, we are in a very low interest rate environment, and as securities mature within the portfolio or as they're reinvested, they're invested at a much lower yield. But by having a diverse portfolio and having other options that are invested away from treasuries, these are additive to help enhance the yield of the portfolio. So if we take a look at the portfolio, it's at about 9.4 million. If we look at the top two pie charts on the top, this shows that the portfolio is invested in very high credit quality, and it's invested in different allocations of U.S. Treasuries, federal agencies, and commercial paper. The portfolio is managed to a one-year strategy with a duration of about a year and an average of about 1.5 years. And you could see the maturity distribution in the chart below here. So the portfolio is managed accordingly with the highest regard to safety, liquidity, and then yield. If we look on the left-hand side, we could see yield to market is 19 basis points, and the yield at cost is at 26 basis points. So if we were to take the securities held and sold all of them within the portfolio on July 31st, the yield we would get is from the market is 19 basis points. So in comparison to yield at cost, that was what the portfolio was yielding as of July 31st on what we were able to purchase the securities at and able to lock in yields at that time. So when you compare the two, yield to market and yield at cost, when you look at the two and compare, when you see that yield to market is lower than yield to cost, that just means the market rates have decreased. But having a diverse portfolio, like I mentioned, with an investment strategy in place has helped the town generate more income, leaving it versus just leaving it in a bank account earning almost nearly zero and keeping it undiversified. So our view with interest rates, we do believe they'll continue to remain low. We also do believe that yields will trade within a reasonably narrow range, and also that yield spreads will remain well contained. And what I mean by that is the yield spread, so anything that's additive to the portfolio other than a U.S. Treasury, for example, federal agency or commercial paper, if we do believe that you are compensated for that risk, we will look to incorporate those. But we do believe the difference in yield, the spreads, will be slightly small and tight going forward. So the portfolio managers that manage this portfolio, they are in tune with the market conditions as they change and evolve. We monitor the Fed closely and see what they come up with and what they will say at their next meetings, and we'll continue to seek opportunities where it would add value to the portfolio. If we look on slide 11, this is the investment policy compliance page. This shows the operating funds portfolio for the town is allocated in treasuries and agencies. We could see that there are about 32% of treasuries, 58% of agencies, and 11% in commercial paper. All the allocations are well in line with the town's investment policy as well as North Carolina state statutes. So at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Nelson, and we could answer questions at that time after he talks about the U.S. Bank acquisition.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear from Mr. Nelson now.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the chance to talk to you. I wanted to highlight for you some changes that are going on at PFM. You heard earlier about Craig Robinson's departure, and he has gone to take a portfolio manager job in a large financial institution that has offices all over the place, and he's excited, and we're excited for him for his new venture. PFM is in it for itself also embarking on a new venture. The managing directors of PFM voted earlier this year to sell our investment advisory business to a division of U.S. Bank. The U.S. Bank is a very large financial institution. Slide 13 of your deck has some information about the bank itself and some information about the combined investment advisory division of U.S. Bank called U.S. Bancorp Asset Management and PFM Asset Management. Combined, our assets would be about $325 billion. U.S. Bank's asset management division has historically been focused in a very similar space to PFM Asset Management, short-term, fixed income, very, very, very high credit quality. But whereas PFM Asset Management is focused on towns and cities and counties, and in some other states other than North Carolina, school districts and operating authorities, U.S. Bank Asset Management is focused in the corporate market. So their clients are largely corporate entities. Think Fortune 100, Fortune 500 types of corporations. So we're excited about the combination of our capabilities. We think that it will lead to better investment management decisions for our client base going forward. The next slide just talks a little bit about why now. And I would say why now is we think we need better technology. We think we need better cybersecurity. We think there's value in the investment advisory world of combining forces and being part of a larger organization. The investment advisory business these days is in many ways dominated by the really large service providers, places like BlackRock or Fidelity, who have trillions of dollars under management. PFM looked carefully when we were looking for external investors, and we decided to go with U.S. Bancorp Asset Management because we think that their ethics, their approach to client service, and their focus is very similar to ours and makes therefore a really good strategic partner for us so that we can keep doing what we want to do going forward in the future. And what we want to do going forward in the future at PFM Asset Management is to continue to work with entities like the town of Garner. At this point in time, we have had to commit to a very small number of layoffs. But at the end of the day, there's about 290 of us at PFM who will be going and joining the U.S. Bancorp Asset Management Division. That division right now currently has about 90 people. So we will end up being a majority of the people in that overall organization. And it also means there's not really anybody who can take Leslie's place or take my place. So we have some job security amidst this acquisition. Slide 17 talks about some of the staffing changing, some of the staff changes that will be occurring at PFM. I think if you can move forward 2 more slides, I wanted to highlight this for you. For our clients who are in the space that the town of Garner is in, short-term, very high credit quality, fixed income securities. The head of our investment advisory business, Marty Margolis, who founded our business back in 1980, he's going to be retiring, and he will play a consulting role to the chief executive for U.S. Bancorp Asset Management for a period of time. His transition is a transition that we've identified for several years, and we've had a succession plan in place. And so the 2 people who are stepping up to fill his role are people who've been at PFM for a long time, people who are going to continue with our same focus and our same direction. So I think the changes that you would see going forward, you frankly have seen them. You've seen Craig roll off of this engagement and Leslie roll on. I was with Craig at the first couple of town council meetings back when you first engaged us. You haven't seen me for a long time. I have a little less hair. I've also lost a little weight, so you may not recognize me, but I do recognize some of you, and I'm pleased to talk to you again. Because we are an SEC registered investment advisor, we have to go out and seek client consents before the transaction can be finalized. Clients have to affirmatively consent that they are okay with their contract being assigned. And so we have sent a request to the town to consent to the assignment of the existing investment advisory contract from PFM Asset Management to PFM Asset Management, the division of U.S. Bancorp Asset Management. That assignment would occur at the time that the transaction closes. The transaction is scheduled to close in early December right now. So that's the timeline we're working on. And that's the reason for our conversation with you today about U.S. Bancorp Asset Management and its acquisition of the PFM Asset Management business. I am happy to answer any questions you might have about that, and Leslie and I are happy to answer any questions that you may have about the portfolio that we've been fortunate to manage for you over the past several years.
Okay, so let me thank you, Mr. Bush, and also Leslie for your comments and for your presentations. We appreciate you being with us tonight. It is important for us to know who you are. And so I'm going to give council an opportunity for any questions or comments they'd like to make at this time. And I'll start to my left with Mr. Singleton.
No questions. I do appreciate the presentation and bringing us up to date on the merger.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Ms. Behringer, anything? Okay, Mr. Matthews?
No questions, Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Dellinger?
No questions. And when we talk about the contract, I do have a few questions, but.
Okay. And Mr. Vance?
No questions. Good presentation and appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You may have indicated this and I missed it, but going forward, as we approve this, so who will be our contact taking the place of Craig? Did you say, is it Leslie or either one of you?
Leslie Weber would be the primary day-to-day person.
Okay.
I work with Leslie on every account that she's on, and so I surely would be available to help.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. All right, so apparently no other questions from council at this time. So I believe the action that is needed is to have the council consider authorizing town staff to execute a new investment advisory agreement with PFM. And I believe, Mr. Dellinger, did you want to ask a question before we take a formal vote on that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is probably a staff question, but in reading the contract, it appears the term of the contract is indefinite in that it is sort of ongoing until it is terminated. And I think from a town standpoint, it would probably make sense for us to do a semi-annual evaluation of the performance of the portfolio, so that we can also evaluate whether or not this is a good relationship, since there's no annual termination to the contract. So probably right before budget time, we can evaluate and see the cash flow, and then sometime in the fall, and we can evaluate the results. That would be my recommendation.
Okay. And so I don't know if either one of you care to comment on that as we consider authorizing this new agreement, but that would seem to be a reasonable part of the agreement going forward. Do either one of you have any comments on that?
I'm happy to add a comment that we would be pleased if you would prefer a different term, a set term of years. We would also be pleased to help in a periodic evaluation of the performance of the portfolio. You certainly have the ability for any reason, including no reason whatsoever, to terminate this relationship with 30 days notice. So let us know what you'd like to do in that regard, and we're happy to help.
Thank you. Okay. Anything, Leslie? Okay.
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dellinger, yeah, did you get?
It's a pleasure, council. We can do it as a matter of policy and our, annual workflow of evaluating it, or we could do a one-year term. I don't really have a preference,
Okay.
as long as we're evaluating.
Okay, and I wanted to hear from Mr. Beck also, but other council members want to ask a question or comment before we ask for a motion?
No questions.
Mr. Beck, was there anything else you wanted to share with us at this time?
Not really. Just to address Mr. Dellinger's comments, we typically do have an annual presentation similar to what Leslie did tonight, where someone from PFM will come to council. That may be the opportunity. We could schedule that whenever council so wished, and that may be the time to do that evaluation of the results, and then determine, moving forward if we want to continue on the path we're on or see any changes at that point.
Okay, yeah, that sounds reasonable to me, or it seems like it would be a good time when that contact is made, perhaps. So,
We have been getting we do get periodic updates we have in the past, and I'm sure we'll continue. And it does note here in the agreement that anytime after 1 year, with a 30-day notice, we can terminate the agreement. So I think what Mr. Dellinger's point is, let's make sure we do continue the regular updates and performance evaluations so that we can, council can see that and to talk with you and also talk with staff if we want to consider making any changes or other considerations, because we have made changes in the past because we used not to do as much commercial paper. We didn't start with commercial paper and we shifted to that during this process. So I think that the periodic updates we've been getting, we need to make sure we continue to get those.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Singleton. Anything else from any other council at this point? Okay, I believe at this point in time, a motion would be in order, seeking to authorize town staff to execute a new investment advisory agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize the town staff to execute a new investment advisory agreement with PFM.
Okay, and Mr. Singleton seconded that. Okay, motion's properly made and seconded. Any question before we vote? Okay, hearing none. If you favor the motion, please vote aye.
Aye.
And if you are opposed, no, and there is no opposition. So motion passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Thank you, Mr. Bush and Miss Leslie, I'm sorry. Was there anything else, David, on this matter?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, we look forward to the association and relationship and look forward to seeing one of you down in person at one of our evaluation times, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks again. Okay, we will close out that particular item then, and now we will move to, I believe, the consent agenda. There are 5 items on the consent agenda. Council, you're aware of those. Did anybody wish to pull an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Okay, moved and properly seconded. All in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda, please vote aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposition, and there is none. Okay. All right, thank you very much. We will now move to public hearings. We have 2 this evening before we get to some new and old business. So let's see, is Miss Allison Jones here? Is she presenting tonight? Oh, yeah, there you are. Okay. Okay, as we move into these hearings, let me note that the first hearing that we'll have tonight is a quasi-judicial hearing. This means under state law, the parties are entitled to a fair hearing. And so I must ask council members, I believe, if they have a fixed opinion prior to the hearing that is not subject to change, or have you had any ex parte communications? Or do I need to clarify that?
We can do that when you call a case. I don't know if you want to have the witnesses sworn in first.
Okay. Yeah, let me finish this and then, yeah, I'll do that. Okay. Or have you had or have any close familial business or other associational relationship with an affected person, or have a financial interest in the outcome? At this point, council, any of you have any of those issues that need to be noted? Okay, seeing and hearing none. So this is a fact-finding hearing, and only competent material and substantial evidence that is not repetitive is allowed. Only expert witnesses based on training and experience may testify as to impacts on property values, traffic safety, or noise levels. Council members are only allowed to receive factual information during this hearing and are not allowed to discuss the case outside of this hearing. With those instructions, at this time, I would ask those of you who are prepared to give testimony on this first hearing, would you please stand at this time, and I need you to see the clerk and be sworn in, please. Okay, at this time, that will good. Yeah, Miss Gibson in the back. Just go back to her area there if you don't mind.
Do you solemnly, sincerely, truly declare and affirm that the evidence you provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, thank you all. Thank you very much. Okay, I believe I'm ready to open the public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing and I will recognize someone from planning. I believe it is Ms. Jones. Are you going first or Gabby?
And if I may, for the public, before she gets started, with respect to the Thompson Road Cell Tower public hearing, because the town owns the property adjacent to the parcel in which the cell tower is proposed to be located, and because the site plan includes a proposed option for an access easement across town property known as Thompson Road Park, I have had some discussions through email or verbally with members of council to advise them of potential options with respect to the access easement. But at this time, I would advise you to hold the public hearing on the special use permit and consider that before you would consider whether or not to grant an access easement. As you'll see in the presentation, there is an option to go directly from Thompson Road to the cell tower site through the subject property, or an alternative option to go from Thompson Road across the town property to the rear of the subject site where the tower location would be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Jones, sure enough. Okay, good to see you this evening. We'll hear from you at this time.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to present 3 cases tonight, so you stuck with me for 3 times. Thompson Road Cell Tower is the first project tonight. It's SUP SP 2101. The applicant is American Towers LLC. Thomas H. Johnson is their counsel. The owner is Danny Wade Thompson, located at 402 Thompson Road, and the tract size is 12.82 acres. The request is to locate a wireless telecommunications tower as an accessory use to the rural tract primarily occupied by the Thompsons as a single-family home identified above. As I already stated, this proposed use is the telecommunication tower. Current zone is R40. The setback is, for the front is 35 feet. There shall be a minimum setback from all sides of the tower equal to 2.5 times the tower height, measured in a straight line to an existing residence, excluding the applicant's residence. So, based on the height of the tower, required is 442.5 feet. They're providing 491 feet between the tower and the nearest residential unit. A neighborhood meeting was held from 5:30 to 6:30 at Heather Hills Club at 901 Claymore Drive in Garner on August 17th, 2021, with 4 neighboring property owners, including one who was not in the notification area, attended. A summary of the meeting was provided in your staff report. As Attorney Jones mentioned before, there are 2 options, and this is option 1, and this is the option that they will access the tower from Thompson Road. And option 2 would be accessing the tower from the rear of Thompson Road Park. There was no open space required for this project, as this is a non-residential development. Tree landscaping and buffer requirements. There was no tree coverage required for this use. The permanent buffers, the base of the tower, including associated structures, fences, etc., shall be surrounded by a forested area of 75 feet wide buffer with planted vegetation and necessary to achieve the 100% screen at 8 feet in height. The plan is providing 75-foot wide landscape area around the entire fence-in area. No mandatory lighting is required for this use. Parking is required for 1 service vehicle. They're required to have 1, and they're proposing 1. Inspections department, together with the fire department, has reviewed and preliminary approved this plan as proposed. There are no environmentally sensitive areas on this lot. Stormwater management. Thompson Road Cell Tower is a site located within the watershed protection area. This site is subject to water quality requirements for nitrogen. The amount of impervious surface at this site does not trigger the stormwater control measure for 85% TSS treatment of nitrogen reduction, nor does it trigger the water quantity requirements. There's no nitrogen offset payment required. This project will not use public utilities, roads, and sidewalks and infrastructure. There are no improvements are required at this time. After sufficient review of plans and revisions, staff finds that this project as now proposed may be considered consistent with the regulations of the UDO, so long as the following project-specific conditions are met. The access and utility easement must be recorded prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy, and an administrative site plan modification for the Thompson Road Park, the option 1 only, if that's chosen, must be submitted by applicant and approved prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. I'm done my presentation, but I'm gonna go back to the option 2 or whatever one y'all want to see. That's fine. But I know the applicant is here, and you have questions for them, and I'm here too for questions as well.
Okay, and we can come back to her perhaps, but let me see if anybody has a question for you right now, Ms. Jones. I'll start down at this end. Anything for Ms. Jones?
No questions at this time?
Mr. Dellinger?
No
Okay,
question.
Ms. Behringer? Okay, over here. Any from Ms. Jones? Mr. Singleton? Okay, none. Okay. So that's the town's report. So the applicant is represented by whom? Okay. Yeah, you can.
Presentation, I don't know if I can control from there.
I'm here, right? He has to come over here, right?
Yeah, I think over here would be best. Okay, if you would state your name and address, please, sir. I believe we've.
My name is Tom Johnson. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Williams & Mullen at 301 Fayetteville Street, Suite 1700 in Raleigh, here on behalf of American Tower. This tower is being required because there's another tower on Thompson Road that has reached the end of its lease, and the landowner does not want to renew the lease. Therefore, we need a replacement tower in the area. And if you recall, not too long ago, the council was nice enough to amend the ordinance to allow this tower in this part of, because it was in the Lake Benson overlay. So that ordinance allows for this to occur at this time. So we had to go through those steps, which you recently approved. As Ms. Jones mentioned, we've got proposed tower site on the property of Mr. Danny Thompson, who's here tonight. 75 by 75 foot compound. We've got 2 proposed accesses, one over the town property shared with the Thompson Road Park, and the other coming further south on Thompson Road to the site. And it will be a monopole tower, single pole with antennas on it. This is a proposed elevation of the tower. It'll be 177 feet in height. It will not be required to be lighted because it is under 200 feet in height, so there won't be any lighting on the tower. Again, this site plan is very similar to what you saw before. And again, it shows the park access. Ms. Jones had already shown the landscaping. We're doing the 75-foot wide buffer. And this gives you the aerial. Basically, you've got Thompson Road Park up this way with the gravel road here. The proposal coming from this direction would be to extend this road just a little further to the edge of the woods on the site, and then come in a diagonal to the tower site right here. This is a more up close view of Thompson Road Park and the area where we were talking about bringing in for non-exclusive access easement that would be shared with the park. These sites don't generate much traffic. There's construction that may last around 60 days, but not continuous. And so the construction would be completed fairly quickly. And after that, it's an average of about 4 or 5 vehicle trips a month for maintenance vehicles. There may be very few in a month. There may be more in a month, depending on what might be going on with the equipment on the site and what maintenance may need to occur. And when I say equipment, it's electronics, the electronics that will run the antennas for the tower or the various carriers, be AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon at the site. And this is the entrance at Thompson Road Park, just to give you an idea of where that entrance would come in. And there are already existing tall structures. If you look here right now, they're the lights for the fields that are there. So this is a single pole, not unlike those lights that currently exist on site. Let me go. I'll just leave it at that. I do want to ask that the application and all associated documents be admitted into evidence in support of the application. We have been going through the site plan process, so a lot of that has been submitted. We've been working with staff, and we got down to the last 2 items on the last review were the nitrogen form, which Ms. Jones indicated we had met that requirement and there won't be any nitrogen payment required. And the other part was working out the turnaround for any emergency vehicles. We have to plan for the largest fire truck that may come to the site, because if that's the only one available, that will be sent. So we had to do some additional configuration of the turnaround, which we did to meet the requirements, in working with Tony Beasley, who was very good to work with us on that to come up with a way to make the turnaround work. So with some additional creativity, we were able to do that. But otherwise, the site plan met our requirements. And we concur with the staff's recommendation that we meet the requirements under the ordinance and ask that you approve the site. I can answer any questions you may have about the proposal and the site, the tower, anything like that. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Questions from council? Down here, Bill, anything?
None this time.
Singleton? Not just yet.
No,
Mr. Dellinger? Okay, Mr. Vance?
Not at this moment.
Okay, I believe.
I'd just like to reserve time to come up if there are any concerns raised by the public that I need to address. I'm happy to do that, as well as further questions council may have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
They may come up, yeah. Okay, anyone else from the applicant wish to testify at this time? Were there any? I thought I saw several people. Okay. All right, is there anyone who came this evening expecting to want to give testimony? Is that Mr. Thompson? Did you want to speak, sir? Oh, okay.
He wasn't sworn.
I'm sorry.
He wasn't sworn.
Okay. Okay, anybody else at this time? Okay, I believe, Ms. Jones, I can close the public hearing at this point, and we're ready for a motion, aren't we? Okay. I'm sorry?
If there are no questions on the special use permit, you can close the public hearing
Yes,
at this time.
okay. Yeah, none but from council, is that right?
Well, concern I have, and I addressed it with some emails today with everyone
True.
after Ms. Jones sent us some information last week, was, do we approve it tonight, or can we make sure that we know that the recommendations made by staff in regards to improvements to the Thompson Road Park area to their property are made? I mean, I would prefer to have that as a part of the permit process and the conditions, that we know those beforehand, before we vote on it.
So one of the proposed conditions from staff is that an access easement be obtained and recorded prior to an occupancy or approval. You could vote on the special use permit first and then open a discussion with respect to the easement, since there are 2 options that have been presented. Obviously, the second option across the site property wouldn't require any input or approval of council.
And if I may, I'll speak briefly to that. We included both options. Our preference would be, and I've talked to your attorney about that and with the town manager about that, our preference would be, because it's much shorter, to work out something jointly with the town on an easement across Thompson Road Park. It'd be a non-exclusive easement, meaning the town could use it as well as us. That would be our preference, but if we couldn't work out those details, then we go with the other easement. But that would be our preference, and we'd like the opportunity to work with staff to work that out, should you approve the special use permit. And so that's the way we'd like to go about it, to leave those two options open, but we will have to record one or the others.
Sure.
Your staff was correct before we could proceed, which we're prepared to do, depending on which way it goes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Sure enough. Ms. Singleton,
Well, my concern is there was a list of conditions that was recommended by the managers, the departments of Parks and Rec, Planning and Public Works, numerous conditions, and Mr. Jones has stated they had not agreed to these. So that's my concern, is they had not agreed to the conditions yet. And they agreed to half of them, or 2/3 of them, or 90% of them, I don't know. But the fact that we have conditions that haven't been agreed upon, I just think we should know what part that is part of the permit.
My understanding, and I'll let Mr. Thompson speak as well, is that we just presented these to them last week, and they have to do an analysis of what the cost would be to do things such as upgrading the gravel to pavement, not only the access drive, but the parking areas, replacing that landscaping screen that's along the fence, perhaps upgrading the gate to some type of electronic gate with cameras, so that if it was left open by a maintenance person, that it could be closed remotely. And then, some associated things such as not staging any construction equipment on the park property when they're building the tower or needing to repair the tower, and, coordinating not only with the current use of the fields, of the field, but perhaps a future greenway access point if that should go through that park as well. So we've presented all those conditions. We don't have any type of agreement at this time, but my understanding is their request would be for you to either delegate that to the town manager and town attorney to negotiate, or once we have some type of arrangement worked out, to bring that back on a future agenda for approval by council.
And if I may, to address that, and Councilmember Singleton, that's a very valid point. My preference would be to approve the special use permit with the condition that it uses one of the two accesses and meets whatever requirements would be required for those accesses, then have a separate motion to allow your staff to negotiate terms for using the entrance across Thompson Road Park. And once we reach some recommended agreement on that, along the lines of what we've already discussed, that would come back to council for final approval. So that'd be kind of two separate motions, as I see it. Special use permit with a required access, one or the other. And then an additional motion regarding negotiation of an access across the park, if that makes sense to you.
And of course, if council wanted to propose their own term or condition,
Sure.
You could certainly bring that up now or instruct staff to include that.
Okay, thank you.
I'll let someone else talk. I'll let someone else comment, then they may not be concerned about it as I am.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
If it's probably better to do it all in one fell swoop with one motion. You're not going to start work before you get the easement, so there's no reason to necessarily approve the special use permit separately. I just have to think about Amazon and the importance of having some of those terms and conditions as part of that special use permit. We need the assurances. Having it all at one time makes more sense.
And we're fine with that, and I'm optimistic. I'm confident we'll work something out. It's kind of like when you're given a proposal and you don't have any numbers to go with it, it's kind of hard to reach a final decision. What's proposed doesn't seem out of reason. We just need to know what those numbers look like for those improvements. I can say one thing: if we were using it, we would not stage any construction equipment on town property. That would be on Mr. Thompson's property as part of the construction there, and that's where the equipment would stay. And we would not, we would minimize and work with staff about minimizing any interference with park uses, because we're not after that either. But so far as the improvements and that type of thing, we need to put some numbers to it. So it would be fine to make a motion in one fell swoop to do that, just leaving us open the option to go with the longer access if for some reason things fall apart. Again, I feel confident we'll work something out because I think it's a mutual interest to do that with some of the improvements that have been requested. I think certainly obviously helps the park to do some of those things.
Okay, any other council members care to weigh in on this with the idea of potentially going ahead and approving special use permit with the access options as noted here in this discussion to be worked out with the town staff? Anybody feel? Kathy? Come on.
I'm okay.
Further concern, Mr. Singleton?
I agree with Mr. Dillon, we should do it all at one time, so we should delay this, let it come back in 2 weeks. Hopefully the conditions will be met, and we know what we're voting on. That's what I prefer.
Okay. Anyone else care to offer up any alternate thought on that? So you heard the proposal, Mr. Johnson, about letting this come back at our next meeting with those conditions specifically proposed. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Singleton?
Yes.
Okay.
Option 1 or option 2 will already be selected, and we'll know if they're going to use option 1 through Thompson Road Park. We'll know specifically what the agreement was.
Did you want to respond to that further?
I'm fine with that as long as, we're not opening back up the public hearing and it's just limited to those items that we need to finalize.
Yeah.
I would like to be assured that all the other, the special use permit itself is acceptable, contingent on those 2 items. And I'm fine to come back at the next meeting. Hopefully I can get some numbers and be able to work with staff to come up with that, to make sure that's okay.
Okay.
I believe it could hold the hearing open. Is that correct?
It'd be a continuation of this hearing, is that right?
You could hold the hearing open. The terms and conditions of the easement do not necessarily have to be terms and conditions of the special use permit, considering they have an alternative that would not require that. So you could make a decision on the special use permit, but reserve or continue just the discussion on the access easement, assuming you're comfortable with the other option being how the tower might get accessed or constructed. This is a little different than other projects you have because as the property owner, you have more control over how town property is used rather than just complying with the UDO and other improvements that are required as part of regulation or conditions associated with the special use permit.
Okay, council. I think there's merit in going ahead and approving the special use permit with the option to come back in 2 weeks with those conditions stipulated at that time. Would that keep it pretty clean? I don't think I can make the motion, so.
I guess from Mr. Singleton's point, I think just considering all those options at once and embedding whatever is agreed or not. If it's not agreed, then it's not in there. And if it is, then it is. And we know black and white what we're voting on. The public knows what they're getting when we vote to approve the permit. That's.
I move we delay voting on this special permit and easement associated with it until our next meeting on September the 21st.
Okay. Motion properly made and seconded to delay this to the next meeting. Okay. Any further discussion by council? Okay, if you're ready to vote, you have the motion before you. If you favor the motion, please vote aye. Aye. If you are opposed to the motion, vote no. Okay, the motion is carried, and Ms. Johnson, we will probably see you again in 2 weeks, I guess, at which time perhaps we can bring this to a culmination satisfactory to all.
Sure. Thank you very much. I'll plan on doing that and we'll work with staff to get it to that point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay. Okay, the next item is item number 2, thank you all for your indulgence. Ms. Jones again is a presenter here. SUP 2107 Oak City Academy.
Okay, so here again.
Yes,
And
ma'am. Thank
a
you.
little different. This one's a SUP, a special use permit as well, but it's a little different than what you normally see. You normally see SUP, special use permits with site plans and all the other great stuff. This one does not have all of the meat and potatoes you normally see, and I will tell you more as I go on the presentation, but just give you a little disclaimer. Oak City Academy is special use permit SUP 2107. The applicant is Danny Breed for Oak City Academy. The owner of the parcel is Garner United Methodist Church. It's located at 201 Methodist Drive, and the tract size is 4.65 acres. The request is to locate a school, private or public, as an accessory use on the tract primarily occupied by Garner United Methodist Church, as noted above. As I already mentioned, the tract size is 4.65 acres. The primary use is religious institution. The minimum lot size dimensions for office and institutional zoning district. The front setback is 35 feet. The rear is 25. Side is 10 to 15 feet. And the corner setback is 35. Neighborhood meeting information. Staff identify 45 unique property owners. Owners of properties within a notification radius, and provided a list below to the applicant for the first class mail notices. 2 neighborhood meetings were held on August 12th and 1 on August 26th. No one attended either one of those meetings. And this is just an overall picture of the existing site of Garner United Methodist Church. There was no open space required for this, as this is a non-residential use. Parking for the school. Parking is based on 2 spaces per classroom or office in elementary or middle schools, 5 spaces per classroom or office for high schools. The time of school use does not conflict with the peak usage undertaken by the religious institution. So school parking does not need to be in excess of the parking of the religious institution. For the school, they are required to have 25 parking spaces, and there are 149 existing parking spaces now. After sufficient review and plans for revision, staff finds this project is in compliance with the applicable standards in the Garner UDO, and the council worksheet is here. So I'm not, a little summary, even though it was written inside of your staff report. Oak City needs to have a special use permit approved in order to occupy Garner United Methodist Church so their school can be in session with the approval of the required zoning requirements.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Did I get ahead of myself by not announcing this is a quasi judicial hearing and that persons who wish to testify need to be sworn?
I think everyone was here and heard that before the first one, and I think, was everyone sworn in?
He wasn't.
Okay.
He didn't get sworn.
So, yes, any additional witnesses besides Ms. Jones will need to be sworn in.
Okay. So if you're here for this hearing, I erred in not recognizing anyone. Are you the only one, sir? Okay. Were you sworn earlier, did you say, or no? Okay. If you would have Ms. Gibson swear you this time, that would be helpful. Did anyone have any questions for Ms. Jones in her presentation? Mr. Dellinger, go ahead.
I was just curious, how many students and what grades are in attendance?
They're K through 12. I'm not sure how many students, but I know it's K through 12, and I can't recall how many classrooms are being used, but based on the classrooms that were provided and the information we have, the parking was sufficient for that. Mr. Danny Breed probably can tell you more how many students though.
85, and what, it's K through 12 now, or it's not quite fleshed out?
And so we can get all this recorded if we could. That would be better. Yeah.
It's 85 students, technically K through 10, but we wanted to be able to have 12 there eventually.
And Mr. Reed, could you just identify your name and address for the
Sure,
record?
I'm Danny Breed, headmaster of Oak City Academy. I live at 5029 Glen Creek Trail, Garner, North Carolina.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we need to get all this proper. I was a little lax in the way I did that.
And I did have
Go
one
ahead.
other question about the permit. Is it an indefinite permit, or is it time limited? Like if once it's granted, is it just there forever for them to use, or is it?
I'm not quite sure of the time limit. But I will say this: they have currently there's a site plan modification in review right now for the school that they intend to build on Benson Road. So this is just a temporary housing for them for right now, but they do plan to move where they for the
The
site
full
plan. that
campus
built.
would be up
Yeah,
there.
pretty soon. And it's good until they cease the use of over here at Garner Methodist Church.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
However, just to clarify, my understanding is it could be occupied by a different school as long as there wasn't a cease of the use, for a period of time. So once they move out, if another school wanted to move in, the special use permit would run with the land.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council, any other questions from Mr. Reeves? Okay, any comments you care to make, sir?
No, I just appreciate working with the town as always, and I love to make Garner a better place and provide great education for the community.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Was there anybody else here who wished to testify in this hearing? I didn't see anybody else. I don't believe sworn. You don't have, no, okay. All right, thank you, sir. Council comments before I ask for a motion? Anybody? Okay, hearing none, I believe that this matter is ripe for a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I move that I find that the application SUP 21-07 meets the town's 8 criteria for special use permits as identified in Article 3.9.2. Therefore, I move that the town council approve SUP-21-07 Oak City Academy with no additional site-specific conditions to be listed on the permit that will be prepared by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews, and seconded by Mr. Vance. Okay, motion's probably before you, council. Any other questions before we vote? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please vote aye. Aye. If there's opposition, vote no. And there is none. Okay. Thank you very much, council, and thank you, Ms. Jones, and also Mr. Reeves. Okay, we'll now move to item under new and old business, CZSB 208 Western Road Subdivision Conditional Zoning, and Mr. Bamford, I believe, is going to present on this. Welcome, Mr. Bamford.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. This is a conditional rezoning request with a subdivision attached as a condition of the zoning.
Okay.
The project is located on Weston Road in North Garner. The size of the property is approximately 11.68 acres in size. The request is to rezone the site from residential 40, a portion zoned R40, and another portion is currently zoned single family R9 conditional use district 218, to rezone those two districts to single family R9 conditional use district 239. The applicant has proposed a limited range of uses for the site, and the subdivision proposes to create 24 single-family lots. that will connect to public infrastructure, water, sewer, and public roads. This is a zoning map of this area of Garner. This is the existing zoning. So the western portion is currently zoned R9 conditional use, and the eastern portion is zoned residential 40, which is low density single family. Directly to the north, we have some R9 zoning general use. To the east, we have some R40 zoning and also some R12 zoning along Park Haven Lane and also Volunteer Street. Those are R9 conditional districts. To the west, directly west, we have some heavy commercial zoning, service business. This is conditional zoning as well. This was rezoned a few years ago for a commercial subdivision. To the southwest, we do have some multifamily uses and multifamily zoning. The applicant has proposed a list of uses for the project, and out of a list of 18 uses, the applicant has restricted them down to only 2, single family, which does include modular homes. Since those are built to the North Carolina building code, they have to be treated the same as a single family. So single family modular and single family subdivision. So all other uses in the R9 district would be prohibited. The other condition is development of this site shall be completed in conformance with the approved preliminary subdivision plan. And I will stop there and let Allison pick up.
Thanks, sir.
So this plan was submitted back in October 2020 and went through 4 rounds of review through staff, the interdepartments reviewing the site plan, proposing 24 lots, and as David already mentioned, the acreage is 11.68 acres. And here is a overall picture of the proposed site. The infrastructure and road and sidewalks. Western Road subdivision is located on the west side of Western Road, north of Curtis Drive. Along the development frontage, Western Road will be improved to half the town of Garner's minor collector street section, which is 32-foot back of curb to back of curb with 60-foot of right-of-way with curb, gutter, and sidewalk. The subdivision will have one access point off Western Road and will be served internally by the east-west extension of Quiet Refuge Lane, north-south Local Street, and Local Street will be stubbed to the vacant parcel to the north of future connection. Public hearing information. The public hearing was held on June 22nd, 2021. The council questions whether Quiet Refuge Lane from Western Road subdivision was going to be extended over to Western Road as a part of this development. The answer was yes. There's also a question of who would pay for this extension. It will be extended by developers' costs. There's another question whether or not there was a required buffer along the property lines. The answer was there would only be a buffer where the site adjoins the apartment multifamily use along the southwestern property lines. There were no other comments from the public hearing. From the public. Planning Commission information. Reviewed the request at their August 9th, 2021 meeting. There were questions about adjoining properties and their ability to connect to public water and sewer in the future. The questions about former playground area now in a common area and why is this not considered as open space calculations for the site. There were also questions about the HOA maintenance of the common areas, also about the tree preservation areas. There were comments made about preference for higher densities for the and for the built greenway. On a 7-0 vote, the Planning Commission unanimously accepted the consistency statement as their own. Written recommendation regarding the consistency of the request with the town's adopted land use plans and recommended approval of CZSB 2008 to Town Council. Okay.
We're going to go through the town's plans and policies. This is the Garner Forward future land use map. This area is designated as medium density residential, which recommends a density of 2.5 to 5 units per acre. And this includes single family townhomes, duplex, triplex, and quadplexes. The proposed density of the project is at 2.1 units an acre, which is less than the recommended range of the future land use map and is therefore not consistent with the map. However, the proposed use of single family is consistent with the recommended land uses for medium density residential. And the site does have some riparian buffers, I guess, along the creek on the western side. And so that's going to account for some areas not being buildable and would reduce the maximum density on the site. Moving on to the Garner Transportation Plan, the proposal is consistent with the transportation plan. And this is due to the road improvements that would be required and constructed as part of the development. For Parks, Recreation, Greenways, and Cultural Resources Master Plan, the rezoning and subdivision plan is consistent. While the plan designates this area as a park search area, the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Department has recommended accepting a fee in lieu of parkland dedication for this project. Consistency statement. This request to rezone approximately 11.68 acres from single-family R40 and single-family R9 conditional use district 218 to single-family R9 conditional use district 239 is inconsistent with the future land use maps recommended density range of 2.5 to 5 units per acre for medium density residential land use, as the request only achieves a density of 2.1 units per acre. The proposed use of single family, however, is consistent with the plan's recommended land uses. A future land use map amendment would be required if this is approved to redesignate this site from medium density residential to low density residential. The LDR or low density category has a recommended range up to 2.5 units per acre. Staff commentary and observations. While the request is consistent with the future land use map, staff believes a reasonable case can be made for supporting the overall request. Reasons that to discuss as part of your deliberations could include the following. Number one, approximately 4.2 acres of the project site is already zoned single-family R9 conditional use district 218, about 36% of the overall project site. The requested rezoning to R9 conditional use district 239 is not out of character with the existing zoning pattern in this area. Avery Park subdivision is zoned R9 conditional use district 35. Johnson Place is zoned R9 conditional use district 186. And there's also approximately 15 acres directly north of the site, currently zoned R9 general use. Number three, the R9 zone is currently the highest density zoning district available for traditional single-family subdivisions. R9 does have a gross density of about 4.4 units an acre. However, the net density of some project sites will vary and will be less than that when you factor in open space, areas for roads, rights of ways, and environmental areas. Number four, the request is consistent with both the town's transportation plans and the Parks, Recreation, Greenways, and Cultural Resources Master Plan. 5, the lower density proposed of 2.1 units per acre may be partially attributed to the amount of open space provided, and this is a result of riparian buffers along the western boundary of the site. reasonableness, in addition to approving a statement regarding consistency upon the advice of the Planning Commission, the Town Council must also approve a statement of reasonableness when making their decision. A staff recommendation, despite the identified inconsistency, staff supports CZ SB 20-08 as presented and reflected in Section 3 of this report, and recommends Town Council approval of the Planning Commission statement of consistency outlined in Section 6, and further recommends approval of the zoning amendment request as a reasonable one. And please refer to your motion worksheet. That concludes our presentation. We'll be happy to answer questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bamford. Council, you've heard the presentation and the notations mentioned there. So questions for Mr. Bamford at this time? We'll start with Mr. Vance.
No questions at this time.
Yes, I have a question. Quiet Refuge Lane. Said in this presentation that the developer is going to pay for that connection. How does that come about, particularly when it runs across other private property? And why would the developer be, are they required to do this? Or what is the status of this connection that's going across another piece of property?
Sure. Can someone help me with that answer? Thanks.
Council.
Good evening.
So that connection is required as part of the transportation plan, and just in general, we try to promote better connectivity when we have new developments coming in. So that's the reasoning behind that requirement.
I'll ask the question again. I've not seen a road be required to be built across other private property by a developer. And so what is the agreement in place with the landowner, and why is this developer being required to do that type of off-site improvement that actually improves another piece of property?
So there's another project that's right beside this one. They both know about each other. And so that's how they're able to make the connection between another piece of another property is not part of this project, because they're both aware of what's going on. And so this developer is going to extend it to their line, and the other one's going to do it to where they are. So
I'd like to be aware of what's going on too. Like, I don't know what's this. It's just something's very strange, and it's not, I've not been told, or it's not clear how this is happening. These are two residential neighborhoods. One's an old established one. You're connecting it across another piece of private property.
So Thompson Business Park, which may have been approved before you got on the council, Mr. Dillinger, I can't recall. But it was, whoops. Where am I going here? That project is extending here on their property. They currently also own this part of the property, which they are selling to Habitat. From what I understand is part of that agreement is that Mr. Thompson has agreed to still build his part that he's required to for the subdivision, which would actually bring it to here. And then Habitat will pick it up the rest of the way. Again, that's just my understanding of the agreement that they've worked out. But either way, I would just say that this part of Quiet Refuge and this piece here has double responsibility right now, and it's up to them to figure out ultimately how it gets paid for. But they're both on the hook for building this piece here.
On that part, but the other part is not required by our UDO.
So the other part was required as part of the extension of Quiet Refuge per the plan, and it was incorporated into their approved plans, so they cannot change their approved plans.
But it wasn't required by our UDO initially.
It was for the commercial subdivision, correct?
Yes, this piece here was, because otherwise they were leaving a landlocked parcel.
So Habitat's paying for that connection based on an agreement with that landowner on a project they're doing.
As far as I know.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I needed to understand. That's fine. They're doing their thing.
10-4.
I just didn't understand. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And to clarify, let me touch on what Mr. Dillinger, because speaking of the construction required by the Thompsons, all this construction to connect Quiet Refuge Lane will take place at the same time, correct? Come on now. This should have already been answered. I mean, if this is a requirement for Quiet Refuge Lanes, shouldn't it all be completed at the same time? You get blank stares.
I don't know if it's required that.
I thought this was.
It does. The subdivision would have to, the residential subdivision is going to have to build their part to get their access to their lots. I'm not sure what the timing of Mr. Thompson's business park is at this point because it's been sitting there for a little while. You may be able to shed more light on that
I'm
subject.
Jim Middleton, Land
Yep.
Acquisition Director of Habitat. Habitat will build our portion as part of the subdivision. I don't have an agreement with Thompson on that could make and demand that they build their portion at the same time. I don't see this any different than a normal subdivision that's being built stubbed into adjacent property. So it will be built at the point they build. It will go all the way through at that point. But we will build our portion when we do the subdivision. Because the subdivision, final inspections will require that our portion be built.
Okay, so, I mean, that's acceptable to our regulations, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have the necessary guarantees in place approaching from both directions. You know, it'd be ideal if they built at the same time, but we've got nothing to say that, you know, Ronnie has to, you know, proceed with his part at the same time as Mr.
Yeah.
Middleton. If, you know, there is a stream crossing there, so chances are then somebody will have to pay for their half. And then when the other part comes in later, they're the ones that are going to have to build it and take payment from the other side. So, yeah, when they come in for their construction drawings, engineering will work with them on that to make sure that that's covered from both sides.
So just for clarification, Habitat has no responsibility for any of that Quiet Refuge Lane that goes off of their property.
Correct. It's to their property line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else on council want to weigh in on this?
How long are permits approved for now? We did the Thompson permit back in 2019, I believe. Is it 3 years?
Yes, and they are permanently suspended as far as sunset rules go right now. So normally they would have I think it's a 2-year or is it 5-year now for site-specific plans. That changed with 160. Yeah, I think 160D changed it to 5, and if it's a multi-phase large project over 25 acres, they can extend it to 7. So as long as he's pulling some kind of permits or has something in review, it stays active. So I don't. But that initial 2 or 5 year clock hasn't even started ticking yet because they're suspended.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anything else? I think, yeah, it's fine, sir. Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to testify on this matter? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Council, I believe this matter is ripe for a motion. As I understand it, we're asked to approve ordinance 2021-5060. Am I correct on that, Mr. Bamford? Or the motion sheet is before you there. Okay. What say you, council? Think you have enough information before you to make a motion on this?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move number 3, inconsistent yet reasonable. I move that the town council accept the planning commission's written statement regarding consistency of the zoning amendment request with the adoption and land use plans determined in section 6 of the staff report, and find the request inconsistent due to land use evidence. Click up here.
You want to help Mr.
Partially inconsistent with the 2018 Garner Forward Plan. Yet, I also move that the town council adopt ordinance number 2021-5060, approving rezoning CZSB 2008 as the request is still reasonable and in the public interest because it is likely, select up with reasonable options, because it is likely to improve the the living conditions within the area. And, excuse me for my delay here. It's likely to improve the living conditions within the area.
Okay, motion properly before you, council. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, council, before we vote, any other question or comment? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion that has been made, would you please vote aye?
Aye.
If there's any opposition, would you vote no? And there is none. Okay. Thank you, council. The matter before you has been approved. Thank you very much, Mr. Bamford, and also Gabby. All right, we are now at item 2, I believe. Conditional zoning map amendment, CZ SP 215-500 Rand Road. Mr. Bamford, I recognize you at this time, sir.
This is a conditional use rezoning request with a commercial site plan attached as a condition. The property is located at Highway 50 with frontage on both Rand Road and Arbor Green Drive. The size of the property is approximately 16.45 acres. The request is to rezone from community retail general use and single family residential 40 to community retail conditional use district 240 for the development of 250,242 square feet of commercial space with adjacent parking deck. This is a vicinity map of the rezoning site outlined in orange. We have Benson Road, or NC 50, along the eastern boundary of the site. The site also has frontage along Arbor Green Drive on the north side, and Rand Road runs along the northern boundary of the site. The predominant land use is single family and rural agriculture. There is a school directly to the west. Across the street, we have some commercial uses. It's auto repair. And beyond that, to the east, we have large areas within the flood zone. So the tracts to the far east on the map are not developable. To the west and southwest, we do have Arbor Green subdivision. This is a current zoning map of this area of Garner. The majority of the property is currently zoned community retail general use. There are a few tracts to the north, zone R40 residential. To the north, on the north side of Rand Road, is in Wake County's jurisdiction. Directly to the west is the Skull zoned multifamily 1. Arbor Green subdivision is zoned residential 12, which are lots of at least 12,000 square feet. Directly to the south, we do have a commercial lot zoned office and institutional that is currently vacant and undeveloped. Directly to the east, we have service business zoning with auto repair use. And farther south on Benson Road, the kind of orange area is multifamily 1 zoning. Just to go over quickly the zoning and ETJ history of this area. The southern area of our ETJ around south of Rand Road came into our jurisdiction in 1988. And this is a zoning map from 1988 and shows the site, the majority of the site zoned community business, which was renamed to community retail in 2003. So the school site is zoned multifamily 1. So this map shows that the site currently zoned community retail has been zoned commercial since 1988. Just some long-range plan history. The 1989 Centennial Long-Range Plan map showed this site and also the site to the south that's currently zoned office and institutional as a neighborhood activity center. The 2006 Comprehensive Growth Plan went from a parcel-based to a node or activity center mapping and was not parcel-based. So we went from parcels to circles and bullseyes. On the 2006 plan, this intersection and also the rezoning site was designated as a neighborhood activity center. So it has been designated as a neighborhood activity center on the past 2 comprehensive future land use maps. I'll stop here and let Gabby pick up on the road improvements and other information.
Thank you.
So in terms of frontage improvements, Benton Road will be widened on the development side to half of a 4-lane divided facility. Rand Road will be widened on the development side to a 3-lane divided facility. And along the property frontage, Arbor Green will be milled down to below the curb and repaved with full depth asphalt. And instead of a 5-foot sidewalk along Benson Road and Rand Road, there will be a 10-foot multi-use path. So per the town's requirement for the traffic impact analysis, the following improvements were identified. At Benson Road and the site access, the applicant will be constructing an exclusive right turn lane and striping an exclusive left turn lane into the site. At Benson Road at Arbor Green Drive, they will install a traffic signal at that intersection, and they will construct an exclusive eastbound left turn lane. One thing that I did want to note, information that staff was made aware of since this came to public hearing, was that there is another bonus allocation project being completed by NC.gov, which will add a left turn lane on Rand Road at the Benson Road intersection. And as part of this project, Benson Road will also have a second lane added north of Rand that tapers back to a single lane before the bridge just north of there. And the signal will also be modified as a part of that improvement, or that project. And then additional improvements that were identified through the TIA at Arbor Green Drive at the site access, they will construct an exclusive westbound right turn lane and an eastbound left turn lane shared with the through movement for ingress. At Benson Road and Timber Drive, early on in the site development process, NC.gov had identified an improvement for the applicant to make at the Timber Drive and Benson Road intersection, but They later realized that there was a bonus allocation project being completed by NCDOT, which would essentially include these improvements. And so the applicant will just be required to pay a fee in lieu for that improvement instead. In terms of access, there will be 3 driveways into the site, a 3/4 access drive on Benton Road, a right-in only drive on Rand Road, and a 3/4 access drive on Arbor Green Drive with right-out prohibitions. And some major funded improvements in that area. There are the 2 additional lanes that are being added in each direction on I-40 between NC-42 and I-440. And of course the NC-540 complete project to extend 540 between NC-55 and I-40. And I won't go too into this since we've already touched on it, but these diagrams just show traffic counts between Buffalo Road, just north of Buffalo Road, down to Cleveland School Road at 4 different points. And so at the very left, you see current traffic counts, and then projected traffic counts for 2025, and at the very right for 2035. And the main point that we're trying to get across here is that with the improvements of the I-40 widening and the 540 complete, you see that the traffic congestion north of Rand Road is eased a little bit, and some of that traffic shifts further south of Rand Road. And then you just see a continuation of that once NC-50 is widened to its ultimate 4-lane section, which is currently projected to happen in 2035. So with that, I'll pass it on to Stacy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Again, for this site, you do have 16.3 acres plus or minus with a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet. This has been through 4 full rounds of review by our technical review committee. Hit the wrong button, sorry. You see the site plan there with the access drives, as Gabby just pointed out there on the map as well as the location of the clinic, which is a 2-story building, and the parking deck. This is a rendering of the building itself. Again, a little over 250,000 square feet. It's 2 floors with the adjoining parking deck, which is 5 levels, 4 under roof and 1 on top of the roof. The exterior finishing materials will consist largely of brick and stone veneer, along with metal paneling and glass. We did want to do a perspective on this one as well, just to kind of show you with topography how that does sit down lower than the school as well. You see it there in the background. That is a rendering of the parking deck area.
We'll go over the public hearing and the planning commission. The public hearing was held on August the 2nd. The main comments from the public had to do with concerns about traffic and also cars turning right out of the site onto Arbor Green Drive and traveling west. There were comments and concerns about children using the crosswalk around the school zone, and also concerns about the the stacking of cars for the school carpool and how that would work with the new use proposed. In addition to the comments stated at the public hearing, we did receive 9 emails and comments that were submitted to the town clerk in advance of the public hearing. And those concerns also had to deal with traffic, congestion, commute times on NC-50, loss of woods, proximity of mental health clinics to elementary school, safety of the crosswalk zones, and construction activity affecting student learning. The Planning Commission held their meeting on August the 9th. There were questions regarding how the full access entrance would work off of Arbor Green Drive, and if the proposed traffic light at Arbor Green Drive was designed with consideration to the school drop-off and pickup, and also traffic volumes. There were questions whether it would be possible to add a concrete island or barrier to encourage left turn only, and whether it was possible to curb the entrance at Arbor Green to encourage left only turns out of the site going east to NC 50. It was asked for confirmation that the right turn prohibition onto Arbor Green Drive was enforced through signage. There were questions about the mid-site entrance. This is the main entrance off of NC 50. There were questions about how that would work in traffic circulation, and how that would work entering the site and merging into 2 lanes. There were also some comments regarding landscaping along the retaining wall. And there was also some questions asked of the geographic radius that the use would serve. Finally, with a vote of 7-0, the Planning Commission was unanimous in accepting the consistency statement as their own with the town's adopted land use plans, and recommended approval of CZSP 20-15 to the town council. Moving on to the Garner Ford future land use map. As noted on the previous land use maps from 1989 and also 2006, where this area was an activity center, it is also an activity center on the 2018 Garner Ford plan. It is designated as a neighborhood commerce center, and the proposed use is an allowable use in the commercial zoning districts, community retail, that would be compatible with this neighborhood commerce designation of the future land use map. Moving on to the Garner Transportation Plan, the proposal is consistent. Moving on to the Parks, Recreation, Greenways, and Cultural Resources Master Plan, the rezoning and proposed plan is consistent. A consistency statement, this request to rezone approximately 16.45 acres from R40 residential and community retail general use to community retail conditional use district 240. It incorporates the widening of both NC 50 and Rand Road, includes sidewalks along Rand Road, and includes a side path along NC 50. The proposed permitted uses are the typical mix of indoor uses customary to meeting the objectives of the neighborhood commerce center. Future land use map designation. Although certain uses and sizes over 100,000 square feet require the extra step of obtaining a special use permit to ensure compatibility. Therefore, this request may be found consistent with adopted land use plans and policies. Reasonableness, in addition to approving a statement regarding plan consistency upon the advice of the Planning Commission, the Town Council must also approve a statement of reasonableness when making their decision. A recommendation, staff supports CZSP 20-15 as presented and reflected in Section 3 of this report. Recommends Town Council approval of the Planning Commission statement of consistency outlined in Section 6 of this report, and further recommends approval of the zoning amendment request as a reasonable one. Please see the motion worksheet. That concludes staff's presentation. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bamford, and also Ms. Katie Lawley. Questions at this point, Council? I'll go to this side first. Mr. Matthews, anything? Mr. Singleton?
Yeah, so I get back to a topic we discussed at the public hearing, and that was also raised at the planning commission meeting. And that is the movement out of the, thank you, appreciate that. The full access drive out and with the right out restrictions, but all this is gonna be a sign that says don't turn right, correct? There's no, I mean, it was raised as you know, can you make that a left turn movement through one of the concrete pork chops or whatever you call them now? So I think we discussed it and it was raised again. So the only, I'll let you answer the question.
Sure. So they will be installing signage communicating that traffic exiting the site should not turn right. We discussed at Planning Commission installing some sort of physical barrier and explained that because that would impact the through movement on Arbor Green Drive, it's just not possible to install anything physically, unfortunately, to prevent that movement. So basically signage is the only option, and we're still working through that with the applicant.
Okay. Well, you could always take the driveway and it could curve at that intersection, but anyway, that's another story. So just signage will be the only thing that prevents someone from going there.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's
Okay.
all right. Okay for now, yes.
Mr. Vance?
No questions at this time.
Mr. Dellinger?
Just reiterating the question, the signage say no right turn or please don't turn right. Like I've never seen a please don't turn right sign. So would it be you cannot turn right? I don't know how signage encourages not to do something.
So the exact wording or whatever the sign is going to say exactly, I'm not aware of that yet. I don't know. That hasn't been determined, but that's being worked through with.
Well, I mean, I've
between
seen signs
engineering
that,
and
you
the
know, will
applicant.
show like an arrow with a right turn and then there's a big red X or something marked through it, which means you can't turn that way.
That's
And
not
we've got Chris Johnson, the town engineer, on. I don't know if he wants to speak to that, if engineering has discussed that further with the applicant.
We haven't had discussions directly with the applicant on it, but what I can say is that it would be a prohibited right turn. So it would be your right turn arrow with a red hash mark through it. And we can look at possibly doing some slight changes to the exit radius and the angle of the exit coming into Arbor Green to try to, I guess, more guide traffic to turning left. But you simply cannot stop them. If somebody really wants to turn right, they're still going to be able to turn right. There's no way to prevent that without impacting the westbound through lane on Arbor Green. So we will work with the applicant to do whatever we can to try to help promote people turning to the left.
Mr. Mayor, one thing that might be helpful is when you come out of that exit, having signage directly across the street that says this way to 540, this way to Highway 50. So when you're coming to that light, you have all these sort of arrows suggesting these very nice routes away. So someone who doesn't know where they're going doesn't say, well, maybe I'll go this way and turn right. Just something, visual cues that are very prominent would be helpful, probably.
I understand and appreciate what you're saying, and I think that would be very helpful. Okay, any other questions? Ms. Behringer? Okay. Mr. Matthews? Mr. Singleton?
So, Mr. Dellinger, do we ask the applicant if they would make a sign like that? Because I agree that would be a smart thing to do. That says, you know, just direction left to 540 and then or to Highway 50. And sounds like a reasonable solution to me. I think we have one of our applicants here tonight.
Good evening, sir. If you'll
Good
state your
evening,
name, please.
Toby Coleman, 150 Fayetteville Street,
Yeah.
Raleigh, here on behalf of the
Toby.
applicant. We would be more than happy to do that to the extent we can. I think that we don't own the property across Harbor Green, so it's more of, can we put it in the public right of way? Will the town let us do that? So I think, I just checked with the development team, and they are more than willing to do that. And we do hear the suggestions on the, if there's any angling that can be done, we'll try to work with engineering. We do have to come back to you in 2 weeks. This is something that's going to be subject to a special use permit. So you guys are going to be looking at super specifically at the site plan in 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
We'll have another bite at this apple.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Okay, was anybody else, I think I've already asked, anybody else planning to testify on this matter? I don't think so, okay. Okay, council, I don't think I need to remind you, I mean, this is something that will be of great benefit to veterans and others in terms of employment. It's going to put some medical care by way of an outpatient clinic a lot closer to many of those folks with this site out there. But at any rate, that's not for discussion tonight, I don't suppose. There is a proposed motion and a motion sheet before you. So I would entertain a motion at this time.
We'll let one of our two veterans make the motion if they care to do that.
There you go.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Mayor, I move that the town council accept the planning commission's written statement regarding consistency of the zoning amendment requested with adopted land use plans detailed in section 6 of the staff report as our own, and I further move that the town council adopt ordinance number 2021. Is there something else I want to add to there?
Yo, it's
5061.
Say again. 5061 approving CZ-SP-20-15 as the request is reasonable for the public interest, and it will likely be of overall design that keeps within the town's character and improves property values.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Motion properly made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion properly made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Call for the vote. If you favor the motion that has been presented, please vote aye.
Aye.
If you oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, council. Thank you, Mr. Coleman and others who've waded through this process. And we'll see you, I believe you said, in a couple of weeks. Yep. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bamford and town staff for your able presentation. We appreciate that. Okay, noticing the hour that it is at this point in time, I think it's proper for us to take a recess of about 10 minutes. So I'm going to declare a recess and we'll come back at about 9:25. Please, council, if you will. Okay, call council back into session after a recess. And council, thank you for your good work tonight. We're getting, as they used to say in the short rows, I believe. So we're to the section of committee reports. I'm not aware of any, but if anybody has one, let me know.
I'd like to mention that the Human Resource Committee will be interviewing this week for the vacant positions, and hopefully we'll have some answers as to who has been selected for the various positions, Parks and Rec, Senior Committee, and also the Veterans Committee in the very near future.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
I know you, that committee's been busy.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate your good work, and we'll look forward to getting your recommendations when you're ready. Thank you. Anybody else on committee report at this time?
Our Veterans Committee is going to be meeting next week, and be the first time we've got some openings. I'm working on some potential candidates to fill 3 slots that are open, and I'm going line to go ahead and fill that out. So I can let you guys know when those are in, so you hopefully we can move on pretty quick and fill that and move on. So that's all, Mr. Mayor.
Good. All right, thanks, Phil. Anybody else? Okay, manager report, Mr. Manager.
You have the Garner info in there, and it's 4 items we're continuing to work on and get in compliance. Actually, it's 3. 2 are pretty close together, but it is 4.
Yeah.
The other thing is just a reminder that on Saturdays there will be a remembrance of September 11th. and it'll be right here at Town Hall at 9 o'clock. So if you're available, come out for that. And that will be primarily conducted by Garner Fire and Garner Police.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dixon. Yeah, the mayor will be here, and look forward to that. But as he said, fire and police are taking the lead in that, so come on out if you can. 9 o'clock, you said, yeah. Okay, anything else, Mr. Manager?
That's it.
Ms. Jones?
No report this evening.
Okay. All right, we are now then to council reports, and I'll start with Mr. Singleton.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the mayor asked me an interesting question I hadn't thought of, but he asked me about, he saw Randolph Ross's gold medal and asked, what was it made of? By the weight, by the gold, the value of gold. I didn't think it was made of pure gold. He says Olympic gold medals are required to be made at least 92.5% silver and must contain a minimum of 6 grams of gold. The Tokyo 2020 Olympic gold medals, 2021, contain more than 6 grams of gold plating on pure silver. Silver medals are pure silver, while bronze medals are red brass, 95% copper, and 5% zinc. So what is an Olympic gold medal worth? Oh, good gosh. As of July 29th of this year, gold was priced at $18.31 per ounce, and silver was priced at $25.78 per ounce, according to the yada, yada, yada. Under that calculation, on July 29th, a gold medal would be worth approximately $810.
Thank you, Mr.
It is
Singleton.
gold in there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and it's the better of that 810. Most of that's gold, since silver's at $25 an ounce versus 1,800. That's a very good question. I never had. I may have looked that up one time, but didn't remember. But this is all up to date with the Olympics. I'm sure that gets asked about every 4 years as a question. So that was very interesting.
Thank you.
I want to thank the town for doing that tonight to honor Mr. Ross. When you think about what he's done, he's also, the defending NCAA champion outdoor track and field 400-meter champion also.
Exactly.
He finished, I think, third in the in the indoor games and the outdoor games, he was the NCAA champion. So he's just a rising junior, I believe. So he'll be one of the favorites for the Americans at the 2024 Olympics. That's already been talked about. So anyway, I appreciate the town doing it. I think it was well received. I mean, we had how many different stations here today? 3 different stations. And it was pushed on, I know WRL, I saw it myself in 12 o'clock news where they were mentioning it. My wife had seen it earlier today. So I appreciate that. This Friday, if Ms. Jones, you remind us, there's a hearing at 9:30. The previous hearing was broadcast live on WRAL. I don't know if this one will be, but I will note and see. But it was broadcast live in regards to the case, the action regarding the dangerous dog. So I think we'll all want to pay attention. I read a paper article in the News Observer where Ms. Jones had talked with them and talked about it. So anyway, I appreciate you still dealing with that issue. We'll see what happens on Friday. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And for those of you who aren't able to watch, I'll provide an update at the end of the hearing so you know what happened.
Thank you very much. Okay, yeah. Phil, I'll go to you.
Just one thing, just to kind of echo on what Grace said about the Olympic champion. It's just interesting that all that's going on in the world. It's not to see a young man step up and accomplish what he did, and to bring a gold medal back home, and be very appreciative of being a local young man and proud of his town and proud of his family. With all's been going on, it's nice to see something really good out of some of our young people, and I think he's kind of set the bar, and hopefully some others will take a look at what he's done and see, well, what can I do now? So I'm glad we did what we did tonight, and it was good for everybody.
Okay. I'll go to that end. Mr. Vance.
What has been said in reference to Mr. Randolph Ross, it was exciting night. His humility was obvious. His love for his family was there, and the respect of his grandparents was also there. So and for what he said about the town was really just endearing as well. So it was a good night, and I echo what everyone else has said. It's a great night to be a Garner citizen and with a gold medal winner.
Well, and you alluded to this, but yeah, I thought it was particularly neat that, you know, you had 3 generations of family members here with the grandfather and the mother, and then he and his brother. You know, that's a nice remembrance of how generational trends work, ideally, in a family. And sounds like he's had good guidance from his older folks right on down to his current parents. So, yeah.
And one more thing I would like to add is that he looked much bigger on television. Surely did.
Okay. Mr. Dellinger.
Nothing tonight.
Are you sick?
Okay. Miss Beringer.
Well, I wish I could think of something to add about Mr. Ross. I think we pretty well covered it all, but he was just truly amazing. And his level of humility and respect for his parents and grandparents, that's just something that's rare. And so not only is he an amazing athlete, but he appears to be an amazing young man, and we can say he belongs to us. Yeah. That's great. I received a certificate today from the League of Women Voters. We were not able to have our annual Women's Equality Day due to the pandemic, but they sent me this cute little magnet that says, here's looking at all you can do. So anybody want to be reminded of what women can do, I'll have it handy so you can see it anytime. Okay.
Very good.
Then I was asked a question by Jason Edge, who lives on New Rand Road again Friday, about the historic downtown Garner sign, or the historic district that is missing from New Rand Road. And so, John, do you have an update? We need to get that replacement was ordered. It has been?
I just don't know, but we ordered the replacement almost immediately after it disappeared.
What company is making that sign?
It's the same folks that did them before.
Wood Graphics?
Wood Graphics, I
Okay.
think, is who's doing.
Okay, I can make him happy and tell him that. That's good. I left a message today for the District 5 engineer about that hole or gap or whatever we want to call it, where New Rand Road butts into Garner Road. It's right where the road curves down and meets the other one, but you cannot make a left turn onto West Garner Road without going through that hole. The man was not available at the time. He was in a meeting, but I did leave a message for him to please have somebody come and look at that for us. It's getting worse and worse. And sadly, I will not be able to be here on September. Well, it's not sad. In one respect, I'm going out of town to a wedding that was put off from last summer, but I would really like to be here on September 11th. That's very important to me, so I trust you all will take care of it for me.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. And the mayor doesn't have anything specific. We've already mentioned the 9/11 issue, and I didn't write it down.
I have one item
Go
to
ahead.
poke a little fun at the town manager.
I think that's permissible.
So you wanted to see the gold medal, which we all did, which was very, very generous of Randolph to show it to us, because I mean, it's pretty rare. I hadn't been that close to one. But, you know, there's almost something just as rare in the room, and that's Rodney's Duke football ACC championship ring. That's almost as rare.
Yeah.
I couldn't resist. I almost said it during the meeting. But there's a lot of them from the 50s and 60s now, if they had them. But, and I've got one, my father got one from 1957 for NC State. I've got it, his ring. But I almost was going to poke a little fun at Rodney and say, yeah, he's almost got something just as rare as that gold medal, but not quite.
My 400-meter time is a few seconds slower than his.
Okay. All right. Well, I just want to personally thank council again, for your faithfulness in attending these meetings. The attendance is very good always, and your deliberation. I don't take any of that for granted, and it's good. It's good working with you all, and appreciate your service to the town. It's much appreciated. So with that, we don't have a closed session tonight, right? Okay.
Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Everybody watch out.
All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Clearly,
He broke it down.